Assemblymember Reyes, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
So you're sponsoring legislation called the New York HERO Act, which you say would protect workers from the spread of disease in the workplace. It was inspired by the COVID-19 pandemic. Tell me exactly what the bill would do.
Sure. So the New York HERO Act, as we're calling it, would provide enforceable standards, basic minimal standards in terms of workplace safety. It would speak to the requirement of PPE, disinfection, social distancing, mechanical barriers in the workplace. It would also create worker committees, so workers have input and a voice in creating these standards for every individual industry. And it would create enforceable rules, a mechanism of enforcement for the Department of Labor and the Department of Health. And it would provide some injunctive relief for workers who may speak up against unsafe work conditions.
So what's in place now? It surprises me that we don't have this minimum standard for workers right now. There aren't these minimum protections. Are workers even protected right now under federal or state law?
Well, OSHA and the federal department and the Department of Labor have been using CDC guidelines to kind of create some structure for employers to follow, but there isn't any concrete guidelines, and they aren't enforceable. And we know that the CDC guidelines are just that, they're guidelines, but they're not very clear as to what employers should be doing in order to protect employees. And I think that it's important that we provide these guidelines because, look, we are in a pandemic that's unprecedented. We've never experienced anything like this. And many employers have no idea how to protect their employees against airborne infectious diseases. Like, unless you're in a healthcare field, that's something that you would have never thought about if you're in retail or if you're in a warehouse or agriculture. These are things that you never had to contend with. And I think it's important that as a state, we provide guidelines for employers.
I imagine some business groups may be concerned about the cost of implementing something like this. Obviously, there's no cost of keeping your workers safe, but you have to buy things like PPE, install new safety standards in your location, wherever you are. What would you say to those business groups and maybe small business owners that are struggling right now and may not be able to afford these costs?
Yeah, well, we argue that the cost of providing PPE and disinfection protocols and perhaps barriers are minimal compared to, one, the loss of life that we've experienced, but also the loss of businesses with frequent shutdowns, with employees getting sick. It means that those losses for businesses could be permanent in many cases, as we've seen many businesses shut down. So to be proactive, we think is not just the right thing to do, but it's also cost effective for the economic stability of our state.
So I should have mentioned at the top, you're a registered nurse, which gives you a really unique point of view on all of this. The State Attorney General's office released a report that we've all heard about last week about the conditions at nursing homes and how some of them may have made the virus outbreak worse in some places. Like some nursing homes just were not prepared with PPE and keeping their staff safe. How would your bill affect those workers? Would it protect nursing home workers from catching the virus and subsequently spreading it?
Absolutely, because it would create those standards for that specific industry. And that's the idea. We don't want to create rules that perhaps don't fit every industry. We want to make sure that the Department of Labor has the flexibility to create those standards depending on the workplace conditions and the industry, the amount of workers, and the type of protections they're going to need based on the exposure to either the public or the environment. And one of the biggest issues that I found with nursing home deaths that we have been talking about for a very long time is the staffing ratios. And I think that was glaring in the AG's report that nursing homes that had better staffing ratios, their patients fared better. Because at the end of the day, when you have limited staff, that is coming in contact with multiple numbers of residents, then the potential to spread that is so much higher. And I think that we need to really look at how we staff healthcare facilities moving forward, not just nursing homes, but of course, hospitals as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. There's a bill moving in the legislature right now that would require minimum staffing at nursing homes and maybe hospitals. That might be different, but definitely in nursing homes. How do you feel about that legislation? Do you think there should be a minimum staff to patient ratio?
Absolutely. And studies have shown, multiple studies, independent studies have shown that when a nurse or healthcare providers have to take care of less patients, then they can provide better care and the outcomes for patients are better. And I think that in the interest of us making sure that we keep everybody safe, that we uphold the dignity of every patient that we care for, that we make sure that we have the staff to provide that care. And in California is the only other state that has those ratios that are enforceable, and they have had better patient outcomes because of that.
All right, well, we will be watching that, and we will also be watching the New York HERO Act, which is moving through the legislature right now. Assemblymember Reyes, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Dan.